It was Christmas time on the island of Sodor. The Fat Controller's engines were busy. The snow made their journeys difficult. They had to work hard to deliver passengers and goods to their destinations on time. This made the engines feel very reliable. Elizabeth pulled into the fitter's yard with Thomas's snowplough. "I don't need that silly old thing," huffed Thomas. "Stuff and nonsense," steamed Elizabeth. "You can't be a reliable engine if you can't get through the snow." That made Thomas cross. "You know I'm reliable. I just don't like my snowplough." "Elizabeth is rude," Thomas chuffed, "and this snowplough makes my buffers ache." Later, Thomas saw the Fat Controller talking to Elizabeth. "The Sodor Pudding Factory is snowed in. Their Christmas puddings must get to the docks before the ship sails for the mainland." "Let me do the job." "I need you on your line. Besides, Elizabeth knows those roads well. She's very reliable." "I'm reliable too," huffed Thomas. "Apparently not reliable enough," Elizabeth chuffed. Now Thomas was crosser still. The snow was heavy, but Thomas arrived at every station right on time. Blue mud. Elizabeth was struggling to... "Silly," huffed Gordon. Percy was trying not to laugh. "Keep your dirt away from me. I'm collecting the mare today." "I should do that." "Really?" chuckled James. "You'd need a wash down first." "Pah!" snorted Gordon. James just laughed. Soon James had collected the mare and puffed proudly away. "Just look at me, Gordon." "Show off," grunted Gordon. The Fat Controller came to the sheds. "I need an engine to collect the Queen of Sodor." "Who's the Queen of Sodor?" "A leaky old barge," replied the Fat Controller. "She needs to go to the workshops. It's dirty work, I'm afraid." Just then, James shunted into the sheds. This gave Gordon an idea. "Is collecting the Queen of Sodor important work too?" "Very important work. Do I have a volunteer?" "Very important work!" exclaimed James. "I'll do it." "Then it's settled. She's waiting at the canal." "Thank you, sir," said James.
Duncan started to speed up.
Gordon was delighted. His plan was working.
"I'm here to collect the Queen."
When Duncan saw the elephant, he was surprised. "Why, it's only a statue," he said. "This is an easy job." "You must wait for the brake van," said the station master. "This statue is very heavy." "Nonsense," huffed Duncan to his driver. "I've pushed heavier loads than this plenty of times." "Let's go, Duncan," said his driver, "but we must be careful." So they left, but without the brake van. But Duncan wasn't careful. He was impatient. "We'll show them how fast I am," Duncan whistled. "We'll deliver this statue and I'll still finish first." Duncan started to speed up. "Silly little engines," he grunted. Thomas was enjoying himself. He was bringing the maypole. The farmers' children waved, and Thomas peeped happily as he passed by. Soon it was time for the decorating. Percy's driver was wrapping streamers and flags around his funnel. Thomas had a big red banner on his tanks. Even Murdoch was being decorated, although he was very shy about it. We could have a competition for the best dressed engine, suggested James. Just then, Gordon shunted in.
Commanded Lady Hat.
A competition?
Not now, dear,
He puffed.
said Sir
I'm
Tom.
bound to win any competition. You'll have to be decorated, said James.
Commanded
This is
Lady
the
Hat.
best dressed engine competition.
now, dear,
Not
said
me,
Sir Topham.
puffed Gordon. You'd never catch me
All
looking
the
so
engines were
ridiculous.
ready for the grand opening. Where's Skarloey? Rusty asked. He promised to be on time, said Peter Sam. At last, Skarloey was on his way. Then there was trouble. The balloon's flames suddenly went out. The air in the balloon cooled and the balloon started to fall. Hold tight, the pilot called.
Diesel could be trouble.
I want to get out, demanded Lady Hat.
Later,
Not now,
Diesel
dear,
was being
said Sir
careless.
Topham Hatt.
Not like that, snapped Fergus. Do it right. Don't interfere, sneered Diesel.
The balloon's
He knew
going
that
to land
Diesel
in the
could be
tree,
trouble.
cried Skarloey.
Later, Diesel was being careless. Not like that, snapped Fergus. Do it right.
And it came
Fergus
down.
and his driver
arrived at the smelters.
I want to go back to the cement works, wailed Fergus. None of the other engines like coming here. It's so scary.
You're right, said his driver. Just then, the scrap diesels arrived. Hello, are you happy to be here?
No,
Cried Fergus. His driver was scared too. Come on, Fergus, we're going to escape. And for the first time, Fergus broke the rules. The Fat Controller was enjoying a tasty supper of kippers when he heard that Fergus was missing.
That's not like Fergus. There must be something wrong. I will send Thomas to look for him.
Fergus and his driver turned onto a disused track to find a place to hide. Fergus was frightened. So was Thomas. He puffed up and down the line. He couldn't see Fergus anywhere.
Pegasus wandered off into the ditch.
We could search the old mine track, said his driver. That line is dark and spooky, whispered Thomas, but he had to be brave and find Fergus.
He asked Thomas. We were loading the cart. Pegasus wandered off into the ditch, silly horse. Now he's stuck. If you can take him,
Fergus
Everyone
was on a
except
siding.
me,
His fire
replied
had gone
Harold.
out.
I'm on duty.
Yes, indeed, said Thomas kindly. Being a rescue helicopter is important work. But no one needs rescuing, sighed Harold. Then came the surprise. Harold's pilot received an urgent call from the Fat Controller.
Pegasus is stuck in a ditch. If he doesn't get to the vicar's fate, the children will be disappointed. You must rescue him at once. All set and ready for action, reported Harold.
Pegasus, wondered Percy. That's a funny name for a
I have to
horse.
decide which engine
It's
is
the
going to
name
run
of a flying horse in a very old story, explained the
Thomas
Fat
Percy
Controller.
Village. I have to decide
Flying
which engine is
horse,
going to run it.
exclaimed Percy.
Paused.
Horses can't fly.
Thomas and Percy looked away.
He felt
I
very
have to decide
clever.
which engine is going to run it. He paused.
He teased. Yes, huffed Thomas. Smelly fish. Smelly new line. Arthur wished he could go to the fishing village instead of the steelworks. He'd be much happier than Thomas. The next morning, Thomas was still grumpy. The fisherman had caught lots of fish. Hurry up, said Thomas. I'm a busy engine. And a fussy one too, said the fisherman. Just enjoy the fresh, salty smell of the fish. Phew, puffed Thomas. Thomas steamed as fast as he could along the line. But there was trouble ahead. Some faulty points sent his trucks one way, and Thomas onto the old pier rail.
Spencer raced through on his way to the party.
The trucks were delighted. He's fallen in the water. Luckily,
Spencer showed the Duke and Duchess many beautiful places. But he never stopped once to take on more water. Gordon and Thomas were collecting passengers when Spencer raced through on his way to the party. Don't forget the water! Who cares? He'll be in trouble soon, sighed Thomas. And Spencer was. He ran out of water on Gordon's Hill.
Why didn't I listen?
Sighed Spencer.
took the loaded
The
trucks
Fat
away.
Controller soon heard the news. I'll send Gordon.
Everyone worked hard, and Thomas took the
When
loaded
Gordon
trucks
arrived, the
away.
station master was waiting.
You need to rescue Spencer. He's stuck
Everyone
on the hill.
worked hard, and Thomas took the
Hurry,
loaded
Gordon,
trucks
said
away.
his driver.
Everyone worked hard, and Thomas took the load.
Controller doesn't
Gordon
like the truck
was
singing,
looking
said
forward
Thomas.
to seeing
You must
Spencer.
stop them. Thank you, said Arthur. I will. Arthur was glad he could keep the trucks in order. He'll never stop the trucks from singing, laughed Thomas. Arthur chuffed cheerfully through the countryside. Soon, the trucks started singing again. Chug, chug, chuff, you tug and huff, but you're so rusty you can't even puff. Stop singing, huffed Arthur. Trucks should do as they're told. The troublesome trucks were cross. If they couldn't sing, they would teach Arthur a lesson instead. We'll show him, they giggled. He can't push us around. Arthur struggled over bridges. And he huffed and puffed through tunnels. He came over the top of a big hill.
The rain
You
made
can't
the
catch
tracks
us,
more
laughed the
wobbly than
trucks. Wheesh! But there was trouble ahead. Duck
The
had stopped
rain
at the
had made the
crossing at the
tracks
bottom of the
more
hill.
wobbly than
Arthur's
ever.
driver applied the brakes, but it was too late.
The rain had made the tracks
Squashed
more wobbly
fruit
than ever.
flew everywhere.
The rain had been.
Arthur
Thomas,
was upset.
you are to collect
His-
the prize bull. He's at the farm on Toby's line.
But those tracks are wobbly, cried Percy.
They are safe enough, said the Fat Controller.
Bye, Percy. Nobody ever listens to me. Thomas was carefully chuffing through the rain. Soon he had collected the farmer's bull and was on his way back.
The rain had made the tracks more wobbly than ever.
Suddenly, there was a deep rumbling sound. Thomas's driver applied the brakes, but it was too late.
Cinders and ashes!
Cried Thomas,
We're stuck!
and they were. Late that night, Thomas still hadn't returned. Percy was worried. Thomas is in trouble, he said. Gordon and James took no notice. Worry wheels, huffed Gordon.
Fussy funnel!
Said James. Please, Percy asked his driver, can we find Thomas? Right away, said his driver.
Encouraged his driver.
Percy was nervous, but his lamp shone brightly in the dark. The tracks creaked and wobbled, but Percy pressed on.
You can do it, Henry, encouraged his driver.
Percy! Cried Thomas.
And take them to the docks.
Yes, sir. Thomas was very cried Thomas and Percy. Henry watched the engines puff away. He didn't feel well. Useful engines don't complain.
He was leaving water everywhere as he chuffed towards the coaling plant. When Emily saw this, she was more worried than ever. Then Thomas and Percy overtook Henry. "Hurry up, Henry!" Percy tooted. "I can't go any faster," Henry chuffed miserably. "You're just being lazy," teased Thomas. By the time Thomas and Percy reached the coaling plant, they had a naughty plan. "Please, sir, Henry wants to take more trucks." "He is bigger," added Percy. The yard manager agreed. Meanwhile, Emily was talking to the Fat Controller. "Oh, I'm worried about Henry."
Perhaps his tubes are leaking, replied the Fat Controller. You'd better check.
Donald and Douglas are Scottish twins. They enjoy working.
By the time Henry reached the coaling plant, Thomas and Percy had already left.
Donald and Douglas are Scottish twins.
"Why did Thomas
They
and
enjoy
Percy
working
leave me
on the
so
Fat
many
Controller's
trucks?" moaned Henry. "They know I'm not feeling well."
Donald and
"We'll still
Douglas
have to
are
take them,"
Scottish.
said his driver. The twins were excited. Going to Lord Callan's castle would be like going home again. Soon Harvey had finished loading the trucks. "Where are you going?" asked Percy. "Lord Callan's castle," Donald proudly announced. "By Castle Lock." "I'm glad I'm not going to Castle Lock," wheezed Percy nervously. "Scared the monster might get you," teased Douglas. "He might," said Donald. "There's no monster." "There is two. There is not. Is two. Is not. Is two." Lord Callan's castle is in Misty Valley. Donald and Douglas were determined to get the important goods to the castle on time. They puffed proudly around the lock toward their destination. "There it is!" cried Donald. "We're almost there!" shouted Douglas. But there was trouble ahead. Trees had fallen across the line. Donald and Douglas stopped just in time. Then suddenly there was a loud... All was well until Bulgy turned the corner. Trevor the traction engine was pulling a hay cart. "Get out of my way!" He overtook Trevor. Bulgy swerved, the hens woke up, the passengers panicked, and Bulgy's driver lost control. The hens were frightened. They flapped, they squawked. "Stop!" cried Bulgy's passengers. "We want to get off!" The passengers were covered in feathers and broken eggs. They were very cross. "This bus is full of hens," they complained. "We shall tell the Fat Controller."
"It's not my fault,"
sulked Bulgy. Later, Oliver saw some children building a giant... The Fat Controller sent Bulgy to be cleaned. Later, Oliver saw some children
Silly
building
hen.
a giant...
silly passengers. You can have them both.
Later,
the farmer still
Oliver
needs
saw
help with
some
his
children
vegetables,
building
said
a
Emily.
giant...
A vegetable bus? That's not such a bad idea.
"And we're back carrying passengers," smiled Thomas. The Fat Controller was waiting for him. "You have to return to the mountain village. Some goods are needed for the festival." "But all this snow makes my wheels feel chilly." "Really useful engines work hard, whatever the weather." Soon, Oliver was loaded and on his way. The snow was cold. It had frozen the points and diverted Oliver into the station sidings. "Oh, shiver my boiler," cried Oliver. His driver applied the brakes. "Is there a problem, Mr. Oliver?" Rusty
Yes!
repairs the railway that winds through the mountains on the island of Solomon.
There is!
The little
That
diesel
could have
checks
been
that
a
the
little
tracks, tunnels
smoother.
and bridges are all... Oliver felt awful.
He thought the children would be
Rusty
upset about
repairs
their
the
snowman.
railway that winds through the mountains on the island of Surrey.
Oliver's driver went for help. The Fat
I
Controller
won't
was
get
just
home without
leaving
more
his
coal.
office when
Where's the nearest bunker?
on the other side of the old wooden bridge, but you can't cross. Rusty says it's not safe.
Ah, Rusty always makes things sound worse than they are.
I'm sure one trip across the old wooden bridge won't hurt, added his driver. When they got to the junction, Duncan's driver removed the sign. And they set off towards the bridge.
At last he had some
This was a big mistake. Suddenly, Duncan hissed to a halt.
At last he had some peace and
I'm out of steam.
He had used up all his coal. What's that?
last he had
He asked
some
nervously.
peace
His
and
driver looked out. The old wooden bridge was starting to collapse. Drive wheels. He looked very strong, called Scarlowy.
This is Murdoch. He's going to be pulling freight on the main line. Ahoy, Murdoch!
Shouted Salty. Welcome, Murdoch, called Harvey. You're the biggest engine I've ever seen, cried Thomas. You're a chatty lot, Murdoch said quietly. Soon Murdoch was coupled to a long line of heavy trucks. His boiler strained, his wheels started to turn, and the mighty engine chuffed away. Murdoch longed for some peace and quiet. But everywhere he went, it was noisy and crowded. At the end of the day, Murdoch was looking forward to a good night's rest. But Salty and Harvey were full of questions. What's the longest train you've ever pulled? Have you worked Marseille?
It was very muddy.
Have you ever crashed? Please, Murdoch chuffed. I want some peace and quiet, and I don't want to share a shed with chatterboxes.
Muddy.
No need to be rude, huffed Harvey.
We're only being friendly, matey.
But it was very muddy.
The next morning, Murdoch collected another long, heavy
It
train.
was very muddy.
This time he chuffed into the beautiful countryside.
Edward
Couldn't wait to hear the brass band play their wonderful music. He was so excited about meeting the brass band that he didn't notice the giant crane. It was unloading a huge ship's boiler. Suddenly, the crane swung the boiler and knocked Edward right off the track. Cranky had been watching.
You useless little engines are always in the way.
Poor Edward. The Fat Controller came immediately.
We will take you to the fitter's yard, and Bertie will have to meet the brass band instead of you.
Edward was sad. That night, a raging storm rolled in. The fitters worked through the night trying to mend Edward. The rain pelted down. Now Edward felt sad and very damp. Morning came and the Fat Controller
Time
arrived.
for their tea.
Please, sir,
Yes, sir.
pleaded Edward, said Rheneas, but he was worried. He wasn't sure he was good enough to make the trip special. When Rheneas arrived at the station, the children and their teacher were waiting on the platform. How can I make the children's day really special? He said to Rusty. You know the mountains better than any engine, said Rusty, but Rheneas wasn't sure his best would be exciting enough. He felt like a very little engine indeed. The Fat Controller had told Rheneas's driver to point out all the beautiful sights along the way. This is Sodor Castle, called his driver. It's very special and important. Rheneas saw the castle every day. He didn't think it was special or important. I must think of something exciting to do, he puffed to himself. You can see the egg and spoons, chuffed Thomas. I didn't know eggs and spoons had races.
The children race with eggs and spoons, said Bertie. And the winner gets a medal. I wish I could get a medal. You'll need to win a race first, whistled Percy. I'll race you, Thomas. The first one to the station is the winner. You're on, whistled Thomas. Ready, steady, go. Better hurry, Bertie, beeped Thomas. Wait. Then Thomas had to stop to pick up some passengers. Wait. Better hurry, Thomas, teased Bertie as he rattled over the bridge. Past. Wait. Exclaimed Emily. I'll go and apologise. Don't want new coaches, chuffed Thomas. Later, Emily was still looking for Thomas when a signalman flagged her down. Oliver hasn't cleared his signal box, he told Emily's driver. Please go and see what's wrong. Emily could see that Oliver had broken down on the crossing. Then Emily heard Thomas's whistle. He could see Oliver, and he knew he could never stop in time. Oh! Emily charged towards Oliver, and with a huge effort, pushed him across the tracks. Just in time. Later, the Fat Controller praised Emily.
Well, John, you were a very brave engine.
The bravest, chuffed Oliver.
It gives me great pleasure to present you with 2 new coaches.
Thank you, sir, replied Emily. I'm sorry I took Annie and Clarabelle. And I'm sorry I was stormy night, cross, the old windmill was struck by lightning. The next morning, Toby chuffed carefully along his branch line. The storm had torn trees from the ground, and farm buildings had been damaged. Then Toby saw the most shocking sight of all. The windmill is broken, he cried. This means the end of my business, said the miller sadly. I can't afford the timber to make repairs. Toby really wanted to help. There must be a way. Suddenly his driver saw a fallen tree ahead. Harvey and Terence were clearing the track. The blasting has made that rock face unsafe, warned Fergus. Don't go near it. Do it right. But the twins took no notice of Fergus and were very naughty. As roughly as they could, they rattled the load towards the cliff. Look out! cried Fergus, and he rushed forward and bumped Bill and Ben out of the way. His driver jumped to safety as the rocks began to fall, but Fergus was covered in rocks right up to his funnel. It took a long time to dig him out, and no one worked harder to help than Bill and Ben. At last, Fergus was free. Bill and Ben were ashamed. We shouldn't have been so naughty, said Bill. We're very sorry, added Ben. Good, smiled Fergus. From now on, we can all do it right together.